I don't think I do a good enough job to tell people like how hard everything still is for me. To sell to people, to get a new client, I've still got to go hard, to look after myself. I went to the gym the other morning and my body's like, just don't go. The core belief in New Zealand is that it's a low-wage economy, all the big corporates rip us off, there will always be, government support. And so we believe all of that. And then other people go, I can't be bothered with that. That seems like an average life. I'm going to become undeniable and I'm going to aim for more. And so then you become really envious of them. They should pay more tax. And so then you get stuck in the same thing. Easy for you to say, same old shit, right? Some of these people just need to admit that they're happy being broke. Just look at other people achieving things, getting curious of how are they doing that? You don't need a $2,000 credit card. Why don't you just go out there and make $2,000? People don't really know what they want from their life. So then they don't really know how to aim their finances towards that. You then get swallowed by political changes, tax rules. You're just focused on where everybody else is saying that they're going to be going or where they think you should be going.
I do believe that there is a place for the benefit. There are people that sometimes go through hard patches of life. But like you said, it's just when you're incentivized by that, from recent experiences, things that you've seen that could really make an impact about changing behavior for the better.
So humans will always game a system to the parameters in which they have to play the game. We're lazy by design, right? Because all that tax is doing is redistributing it to where the government thinks that they can get a better bang for buck. Why don't we incentivize the individual? Now, all that's going to happen for that person is they're going to become healthier, better educated, less obese, a more productive employee. What's all that going to lead to? Probably higher incomes and more tax. There should be some incentives that in the tax rules that allow people to better themselves in a modern economy and be rewarded for that.
What do you think are things that we could start doing to reactivate the economy in different places and then ultimately get the country in a better position?
Geez, how long you got? Immigrants are coming here going, whoa, look at all this opportunity. I'm not wasting this. People are going to get to 65 and realize, the pension isn't going to provide the life that they thought that it would. No one's coming to save them. And they're going to go, how did this happen? This is so unfair. The government should be doing more for me. We got extended poverty because most people are complaining because you can't even see the good things in front of you. Gratitude leads to wealth. Complaining leads to poverty.
A quick word before we dive in. If this content speaks to you, subscribing to the channel is one of the most powerful ways you can support what we're building here. That one small action can help us grow, attract the guests that you care about, and continue to build this to more than just a podcast, but a community and a movement. And now, let's dive in. Welcome to the Melding News Podcast. Melding art and design, entrepreneurship, music, fashion, film, sports, gaming, and whatever's in between. We exist to showcase extraordinary people to inspire the next generation of creatives and leaders. My guest today is Kemeys, friend, accountant, entrepreneur, podcaster, speaker, business advisor. This dude does it all. We talked about key learnings from running Keep the Change podcast over the years, the New Zealand economy, tax that changes behavior, mindset and goal setting, and a lot more. If you love to learn, keep your finances in order, and get inspired to kick some ass, this episode is for you. Kemeys, welcome to the Melding News Podcast. How are you doing, my brother?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, bro, I'm so stoked to have you here. Just to give everybody a little bit of context, I texted you I think over a year ago, probably, because I was pretty ambitious, start a podcast. I'm like, let's just get the best guy out there doing podcasts and try to get him on. And I hit you up, no hope whatsoever that you're going to respond. I was like, there's no way he's going to reply to me, especially because I'm DM you for my personal too. And then you reply saying, when you got 20, come talk to me. And I fucking love that. I'm just going to say that because obviously motivated me. So I was like, fuck, and he's on. And then as soon as I hit the 20, I was like, bro, we on. And you're like, yeah, let's do it.
Tell me where to be. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you for taking the time. Like I was mentioning to you off air, I really wanted to have you here because I've talked to so many incredible athletes, musicians, entrepreneurs, all types of people in this podcast. And one thing that keeps coming back is financial literacy. And I was like, I always mention your podcast, by the way. I was like, have you listened to this podcast? This guy's amazing. And I wanted to talk to you, discuss a bunch of things. Hopefully, some of those people that listen to this podcast can get a lot of information out of you. And of course, seek more information if they don't need so. In your platforms, you do speeches, educators, actually Keep the Change Unplugged coming up. Let's start with something, though, to get everybody a little bit of context as well. I want to start with your background a little bit, because to get a person like you, to get that personality, that drive, that grind, all that kind of stuff, I want to get the juice of the background, mate. I want to get what happened before, mindset shift along the way. How have you become that person that you are today, essentially?
Yeah, I obviously reflect on this quite a lot myself as I go deeper into my own journey, and then when you try and create content to help people, a lot of people are just getting started, or they're coming across their first roadblock, or self-confidence, or identity changes, all these sorts of things. And you have to sort of try and unpack your own stuff to then figure out how do you put it into examples that other people can learn from. And I think a few key pillars for me, I had always been really driven and keen and hungry, when I was younger. Probably got that internal, aggression and maybe chip on the shoulder, and sort of always really sort of believed in myself, but never really, I'm never the prefect. Right. Or whatever, and it would frustrate me. And even yesterday I was reflecting. I'm like, I don't think I do a good enough job to tell people how hard everything still is for me.
Right.
Now, I don't want to go out there and be like, oh, my life's hard, because people are like, no, it isn't. What they see. But, to get people into a room, to sell to people, to get a new client for my accounting practice, I've still got to go hard, to look after myself, I went to the gym the other morning and my body's like, Dad, just don't go. You did personal training session yesterday. There's one tomorrow. You want to go kick a football around this afternoon. So just don't go to the gym. And I'm like, nah, I'll just go for 30. Trying to override that internal voice, and then come home. Oh, it's real windy. It's not that enjoyable to kick a football around when it's windy. Oh, mate, just go. Just go. And so it still actually is really hard for me, but I think I don't talk enough about that to show people that I probably struggle with a lot of the things that people do in whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. But what happens when you do enough reps is that you get better at ignoring that voice. Yes. Or, okay, my email platform crashed. Damn it, didn't save it. Well, the answer is start again, brother. 5 years ago, it would be like, oh, bugger. Well, I'm not doing one today.
Yeah.
So, I've still got to go through those things, but I've had to learn that, those are the reps that we do, and then they lead to things, and you start to see them working, and then it makes it harder to skip the reps as well, because you get, reward for doing it. So I guess I've kind of always known, I can recall saying to a mate over a few beers, I'm like, I'm fucking one of the all times. I just need to do the work. And, who says that?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Especially not in New Zealand. But what I'm saying is, I can see that I can do well and be successful, but the only person that's going to get in the way of that is me not doing the work. And I think, I've always believed that. So I sort of try and lean into that, and then I can call myself out on my BS of sort of, well, you're not doing the work at the moment, bro. So why do you expect too much? So I've been able to have kind of inner conversations with myself as well, and sort of hold myself accountable, and then look to other people for what they're doing and doing well, and then get some accountability from them, or try different things. So that, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think it does, bro. I think it does. And the last part, though, I wanted to get out of that was mainly, I don't want to really psychoanalyze your upbringing, but you mentioned something very key there. There's a couple of things there that I think culturally New Zealanders are usually holding back on. Like there's this sort of imposter syndrome, there's this tall poppy syndrome. It's a bunch of things that makes people go, And that thing that you mentioned about battling with your, I think Joe Rogan called it the inner bitch inside of you that says, don't go to the gym, don't go train because it's raining. Like all these sort of things is your own mind trying to sabotage all these things that you want to achieve. But I think it takes a special sort of, either a chip or something that sort of changes that thing. Like for me, it did at some point in my life. Because I was very driven when I was a kid, but something had to happen. Like I became very delusional at one point where I was like, man, this is not working out for me. I was really fat. And I was like, fuck, man, my genetics are shit. Until one day I'm like, I'm just talking shit to myself. And then everything changes. And from that pivotal moment when I decided to change my life and actually start eating healthy and drop 20 kilos in 3 months.
Wow.
That's when I realized, I've been talking shit to myself this whole time. And then everything changes from that. Like started doing businesses and starting doing things like this. And you mentioned about this thing about being uncomfortable doing the things that we're doing right now. 100% people think it's easy. You just talk, like it's just natural for them. But you still have to go through that fear of, okay, what is going to happen today? I don't know. Am I going to be good enough for talking to this guy who's been doing 500 podcasts and I'm doing 20?
Yeah.
You still have to battle through that. And I just want to dive deeper a little bit into the psychology of that. Was it any pivotal moment were you always like this since you were very young? Like you always had this chip inside of you that just wanted to push and break into that mold of society probably establishes in terms of that? Yeah,
I think I come back to that. I grew up in a household where like money wasn't always abundant, and we were very resourceful and sometimes frugal, and I saw struggle. But I have to be, every time I say this, I have to be careful because my parents separated, and then like they can kind of take it. What do you mean by that? You know, we always provided for you, so there's no shade on them. But I think I started to look at what other people had and kind of thought, well, why is it like this for us? And I thought, well, on my journey, you know, when it's my turn, I'm gonna break that cycle, or I'm gonna do something a little bit different, or I'm gonna figure out, well, how do they do it? Not, I'm gonna carry this story on.
Right. So it's about breaking that chain sort of thing and do something better. Right.
And as simple as that validation needs to be, or that permission, is just look at other people achieving things, and instead of being jealous or envious, actually getting curious of how are they doing that? What are they doing that I'm not? What am I missing here? And that, I think, puts you into a completely different way of life. You think better. You're looking for answers. You're looking for, okay, how, you know, to drop 20 kegs in 3 months. You know, if everybody wants to hear that, 20 kegs in 3 months, and well, you know, what's the secret thing? And it's like, there'll be 28 things that you did, right?
100%.
But the key thing that you would have done is made a decision and then gone on change the story that it could be done.
Yeah.
So I kind of started looking at people. I'm thinking, well, their story must just be different to mine. So if I can change what I want the story to be, well, I'll just start writing the story.
Oh, that's it. That's the one. Yeah. 100%. People always do that, bro. It's like, okay, what is this? What is the recipe? It's like, it's not a recipe, man. You just have to want and need to do this.
And on the tall poppy thing, like even at the moment, I'm up for some awards that are coming up soon, right? My initial reaction is like, oh shit, man. People are gonna like, what are people gonna say on Facebook? Oh, that guy, like, why is he getting it? And like, I'm deep into my journey, and I'm still worried about that, to the point where I'm like, is it even any point putting myself forward and saying, I'm happy to be a part of that award. So it's never done, like it's never over, but I have to stop and go, well, if I'm going to let them win, you know, whoever those comments are and the brain win, and then not have that acknowledgement of that award that people are nominating me for, being like, bro, we want you to win this. And I'm like, no, I don't need that. Well, like, that's still bad, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe I do have to go first, go through it, cop some criticism, cop the tall poppy, to then share the story, to be like, come on, guys, like, you know, I'm trying to role model the stuff that I talk about as well. So I don't think it ever sort of stops for us. But I think you do get to a point where you just go, like, you just purely don't care, or you get better at handling some of that stuff. But to do that, your goals have to be bigger than your struggle. So you've got to really go, because once you start to get out of, you know, the basic human needs and things, you've then got to go, right, well, you're back to comfort zone. Okay. So well, if I want to achieve something bigger, if I want to be more than I currently am, if I want to get closer to my potential, well, it's not like, I'm scared of, you know, these things, so I got to do it. It's I want to, you know, there's got to be something that pulls you even harder. And I think that's like, a lot of people don't get to do that, you know, and then don't, you know, get themselves to the training paddock or doing the reps or sending out the email or accepting the rejection, because the goal isn't strong enough and they haven't unpacked, like, why am I doing that? Is it the purpose? Is it the freedom? Is it what I can do with the money? Is it what I can do with the time? And unless you get clear on that stuff, I think you just end up running from the pain. So, okay, I don't want to be overweight anymore. Great, well, you're going to get yourself back to not overweight, but how do you then get to the six pack if you want that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one thing that you mentioned there, man, like, for me, two things that you mentioned there, basically the growth mindset, right? Something that really I learned from, I'm going to be honest, I learned that from hanging out with badass people. Like, when I go into corporate, I managed to actually get really good leaders. And when you then started getting closer to the top, then you get into see the CEOs and the struggles and the things that, resilience, biggest thing, right? Yeah. So then you start learning all of that, and then you go, okay, whoa, I'm going to apply that for all the things that I do. Now, let's talk about financial literacy now, because that's what you do. That's what you're good at. And you talk about so much stuff in your podcast and the videos that you make. We will cover some of that stuff that I find quite interesting. But let's just start with something very plain. You've been doing this for a long time. What are the top sort of 5 key takeaways after all these years doing this? Hundreds and thousands of comments of people out there. 5 takeaways from doing this
to help people.
Let's say, for example, you say, well, after doing this for 5 years, I've realized people have no idea how to do tax.
Gotcha.
Or people have no idea of how to build a business and what they can do, you know.
which you talked recently about secondary incomes. Is it worth it? You know, what are the top sort of 5 things that you, before you started the podcast, you didn't know New Zealanders didn't know, and then after you go, man, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, I reckon, is that people don't really know what they want from their life. So then they don't really know how to aim their finances towards that. And so that becomes
that's a good one.
that becomes really confronting, because you then get swallowed by political changes, political party, tax rules, changes, election cycles, because you don't know where you're going. So then you're just focused on where everybody else is saying that they're going to be going, or where they think you should be going. So you've got to kind of have a realization of, I actually don't know what I want to achieve here, and put something in place. Secondly, people don't keep their mind on their money. So they don't actually, people call it budgeting, but they don't actually track, okay, what have I got coming in? What have I got going out? What am I investing into? And then they're not systematically and routinely looking at their money. They're just letting it happen to them. But the closer you get to your money, then you start thinking, oh, I've got a bit of extra money. Well, what am I going to do with it? Okay, so you ask yourself that question rather than not even thinking about this stuff. Well, now that I know what my goal is, okay, maybe I'll put it aside because I'm saving for an emergency fund, for instance. So again, you use goals, and then actually, like, let's keep an eye on this stuff. So I talk about tracking your assets and then your liabilities. And most people who are contributing to KiwiSaver, they've got a form of an asset. So you can see, okay, is it increasing over the year? And that's basically what businesses have to do. So I think good enough for business, good enough for the individual. Thirdly is a massive lack of belief. So even if they, do have the goal, but, don't have the belief that they can achieve it and go on the journey to achieve it, well, then they won't start. So instead of, their belief will be broken. So then if I say to them, oh, hey, you could put an emergency fund aside, and you could achieve this, and you could do that, and what about your retirement? And they'll be like, well, I'm never going to retire. Oh, well, easy for you to say. And it's like, yeah, bro, it is, because I did it. So, like, what a stupid comment to leave. Or easy for you, but they're just stuck in their belief, And we understand that, but people who don't do this work, it's this, like the story you were telling yourself about your, body weight, and you just stay there because that's your belief. And then you go, I'm sick of this. So I think people need a bit of a rock bottom moment to then change. But really what you're doing is you're changing your belief. And so the core belief in New Zealand is that it's a low wage economy. All the big corporates rip us off. Someone's coming to save me. There will always be, government support there, all of the stuff. And so we believe all of that. And then other people go, oh, I can't be bothered with that. That seems like an average life. I'm going to become undeniable, and I'm going to aim for more. And they, push for more. And then, so then your belief was that you didn't have to do all that stuff. Because again, like, those people had goals, and those people were keeping an eye on their money. They had belief. And so then you become really envious of them. Oh, well, that's, BS. Why can they do that? Oh, they should pay more tax. And so then you get stuck in the same thing. And again, it's like, well, what's your plan? So that's not helpful. So like a belief there. And then once you tidy up that belief, then you start taking actions. And then the action leads to more action. So just before I come onto the podcast, a dude messaged me saying that he'd sort of normally just do the bare minimum at work, and that would frustrate him that nothing was really happening. But that belief is that, well, I'll get nothing more because I'll just do what I'm supposed to do. And I completely get that belief. But I often teach, well, if you go above and beyond and start looking for things that ways that you can add value or help people, then other good things will happen to you randomly. So a good example from this week, I've got a client. I'm like, we need to get you moving. We need to get you in motion. Let's get you handing out some flyers in business. He hands out some flyers, and he's like to me, bro, nothing's come of the flyers yet. But guess what happened? I stopped on the way back and stopped at a cafe. I was having a coffee with my mate who was helping me hand out the flyers, and a lady walked past and was like, oh, do you do XYZ? Saw the flyer, saw the saw the shirt, and it's like, oh, well, we need that. Can you come around to our house? Bang, picks up work.
Yeah.
So he's taking action, and then it leads to something. And sometimes that doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like. So then people do start getting themselves moving, and they realize like, whoa, I changed my belief. I changed the way I did things. And this guy who messaged this morning was like, oh, I got a job on a Friday. It was $200. And he's like, man, I just made $200 from doing this task. And then he's like, the next time I said, oh, well, it'll be 500. And they're like, yeah, okay. And he's like, whoa. My mind is blowing.
Yeah.
So he's gone from low wage economy, just do the bare minimum, countries against me, employers suck, all of this, to I just made $200, in a couple of hours, to then making 500. So now he's realizing, shit, my beliefs have been wrong the whole time. And then he's like, and then the next time I said it's $1,000, and they said, well, we really need it done, so that's fine, we'll pay $1,000. And so his whole world has now changed and been what he believed to be true is now basically proven in front of his eyes. It was wrong. You know, the market was willing to pay that. The beautiful thing of that is that you again get into this new territory where you're looking around going, whoa, what did I believe to be true that actually, you know, isn't? And then to give us a number 5, I think there's just a real lack of drive for a lot of people. Like it is really hard out there because we haven't learned about inflation at school. We haven't learned about interest rates changing, how all of this stuff works. And so then we grab onto whatever the core messaging is. So it could just be that, you know, the wealthy don't pay enough tax, for instance. Okay, well, I'll wait till they solve that and then my life will be better. And, you know, we laugh because you're like, that ain't going to work, you know? So because we don't get these core understandings, then we end up in trouble. So it might be, second job, you end up paying way more tax, so I'm not going to do it. I'm like, no, you're taxing your total income, not the number of jobs you have. So you've got to go, you know, so I'll do an hour podcast on that trying to explain it to people because people will then hold themselves back with the lack of education. So my whole thing has been, okay, if I can educate people on some of these core things of probably those 5 things we've just spoken about and go deeper into them, then who knows where their journey will go to.
Amazing, dude. Wow. That was an action-packed 5 things, and I agree with a lot of that stuff. I mean, you've been speaking about this, and I like how you left the financial side, like the financial literacy, as just the one point because it's everything else before that, right? That enables. Yeah, you need. This is the knowledge here, but you need to really change your mindset in a bunch of different things, right? Core beliefs in there as well. Yeah, I mean, I think 100%. One thing that came to mind when you were talking about these stories, right, is that fundamentally, like for example, I play a lot of football and. A lot of people in New Zealand, I've realized, they don't want to talk about what they do. I'm the type of person that if I'm turned up to it and it's like, hey, bro, what do you do? You know? Oh, I do this. Oh, cool. So, and then try to find out more. Just so that I understand what they do. So maybe they can do something for me and I can do something for them. You know, like try to build that sort of thing. I got a huge client of mine through just football. Like the guy's like, I need a designer. And the other guy's like, I think that guy's our designer. I was like, okay, cool. And then suddenly I grow this relationship to now, you know, making a lot of money from this one conversation, one interaction. But seems to me that there is this thing where people don't want to sort of put themselves out there like this. They find it cringy.
Yes.
When you go and try to sell something or tell them, hey, I do this, like have a look at this website. I did this or whatever. Like it's a bit cringy for people. I never understood that. I come from a third world country, right? Where people are just like hustling their ass off, right?
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that. And then once you realize, people, you know, realize that there's so much money to make there. There's demand and supply. You go, wait a minute. My skill set, like you said, is actually in a lot of demand. Like a lot of people need this. And that means I can, if I get more work, then I mean I charge a premium. Realizing these little things with the skills that you have and seeing how you can monetize those, insane.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because as a mate of mine, Stanley Henry, he's putting out content at the moment of all people's excuses of why they don't post on social media, and he's taking everybody's reason, which is, and then he's calling it an excuse and doing content on it.
Right.
And I'm keeping an eye on them because they just crack me up because obviously I've been doing content for so long. You kind of, you know, you've seen all this stuff. And the funny one yesterday was that, it's cringy to, you know, make this content and put yourself out there. And I said to him 2 days ago, I was like, some of these people just need to admit that they're happy being broke. You know, and someone once said to me, well, why do you post so much on LinkedIn? I was like, bro, I don't want to be broke, man. So yeah, that's why I do it. I'm like, it's like, well, no one's going to come give me clients. I've got to go figure out how to do it. No one's going to give me speaking opportunities. No one's going to know my podcast exists. I've got to do it. So yeah, sorry, I don't want to be broke. And so I said yesterday, you know, what's actually cringy for a lot of these Kiwi people that say this shit is what's cringy is that, and cringe is that they've got all of the opportunity at their fingertips and all of the resources and had more chance and opportunity than most people, and they're not fucking doing anything with it.
Exactly.
That's cringe.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they have today, bro, you have a marketing machine at your fingertips with social media and all that stuff, but people don't make advantage because it's cringy, you know what I mean? And also the other thing as well about that, bro, is I think there's a core thing there where people think that, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do this business and I'm gonna put my website out there and then orders are gonna come.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like nobody cares. Like you have to show people that they should care. And to do that, you need to put a plan in motion. And you know, social media is a great marketing machine for that. Use that. Use this, use Google Ads, learn this, learn that. But they just think that because you put something out there, people are gonna just come flying in with interest. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess we all subconsciously, maybe even consciously, I don't know, think that we're more important than what we are.
Oh, 100%. Nobody cares.
And
like,
that's
you're not that important. Like,
exactly. And even like I remind myself of that, you know, oh, we want to do more speaking gigs. I'm like, well, who are you telling you're speaking, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's me. I got to figure that out. You know, they're not just, oh, hey, mate, saw you're doing that. Like, so, you got to talk about it. Is it cringy? Well, I don't know. Like, I fucking like my life. So you tell me. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of that Kiwi sort of, maybe it comes back to one of those things we were talking about before. There's so much support in this country. It's not been that hard for a lot of people as much as they would say it has. Their version of hard isn't compared to other people's.
Yep.
And, we can get into who's got the biggest victim story, but again, nothing happens unless you go, right, well, let's change that. And so I think for a lot of people, they've been bred to be in this comfortable environment and know that they've got a number of backstops, so it doesn't push them hard enough to go, you know what, I'm going to have to, I've built the website, I've got the product or whatever it could be, I've got to put myself out there. Yep. And I've got to try and sell it and I've got to get some attention on it. And that's hard for them, but there's not enough reason for them to do it. So then they, demonize the people who are doing it. But the good thing for all of us to remember that do it is it means that it's easier for us because you're competing with people who don't have stickability, resilience, who won't do it, who are delusional to a point of inaction and think, well, why should I have to? And they get stuck. And then we become the 5% that do. And you can stand out. You can actually do very well in this country because you can do the things that other people aren't willing to do. And arguably, if you had one person in a cul-de-sac and they were willing to go around and do everyone's lawns and 9 people are saying that's cringe, I went to uni, I shouldn't have to do that. Cool. The longer you believe that, the easier it is for that one person to make the money, right? And keep everyone happy, build the reputation, then go back and trim the hedges, clean their car, and build all these opportunities whilst the other 9 are, playing with themselves or something at home thinking, that you're the dickhead. But if all of them were knocking on the doors, okay, now we'd probably be complaining about that too. Oh, sheesh, now they're undercutting me. Oh, wow, they got up earlier than me. So we actually live in a country where it's very easy to succeed because you're not competing with that many people that are willing to do what the market actually wants you to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I see that. I mean, bro, what you just mentioned brought thoughts of like, bro, if I look at my company, 98% of people are all foreigners.
Wow.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Like, if you look at that, it's a Kiwi company, but all the talent, all the opportunities, all these jobs, we have to bring people from overseas.
Yeah.
Right? And they work their ass off to get these positions, right? So it's actually very eye-opening to see a lot of this kind of stuff. But just to change a little bit of a topic there was something that you spoke about recently, which I really connected with. And it was about things that change behavior. And you spoke about tax in multiple ways. You spoke about, when you have a secondary income and what it does do. Oh, okay, well, I'm leaving this. That happened to me. I must say it. It's got to a point I'm making good money. But then another external job comes over and like, it's not worth my time. Like, because I have to leave like this amount on the table. And I used to think like that as well. So all these things that you mentioned are very important. There's another thing that you mentioned about even tax incentives, right? Like when you put money into investing in yourself for growing your business, stuff like that. And the key thing there that I thought was very interesting and was very on point was change behavior. The things that promote a certain behavior. We talk about the benefit. And there are other things that, like the tax stuff, that also incentivize people to either not do work. So talk a little bit about this because I find that very, very interesting. What are some of those things that, you spoke about a couple of these, but from recent experiences, things that you've seen that could really make an impact about changing behavior for the better? Yeah.
So when I went to university and studied accounting and tax, and you basically learn that it's not just about, okay, the government collects X amount and then they redistribute it and spend it, right? It's actually designed to change behavior. So do we want to put a tax on alcohol, for instance, as well?
Yeah.
So that then people will drink less alcohol. People talk about a sugar tax, for instance. And what people get frustrated by is the fact they're working hard and then they get taxed at a third once you start getting over $78,000. So you feel like you're going to work and you are disincentivized to do more, because then you start weighing it up. Is it worth my time? Should I do more or should I stay at home? And what sort of changed in this space a little bit that I think really starts getting to a tipping point, and I think we'll go further down the track. We introduced a 39% top tax rate on people earning over $180,000. Now, instantly, that's really hard for people to understand because only 3% of people earn over 180K. But let's say your doctor is earning over 180K, and then you're sick on a Saturday. Well, now your doctor might go, is it worth me working to get 60% of my income and miss my entire sleep because I'm working the night shift, right, and I've got to deal with some drunk people coming through as well. And then I get up Sunday morning and I've missed my children's cricket on the Sunday. So you know what? Maybe I won't do the night shift. Maybe it doesn't, mean as much to have 60% of that or 61% compared to the time with my family, keeping my sleep right. I don't want to be spat at by some drunk person. And these are the things that we don't talk enough about to then think, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that before. And that's where I think, going back to those 5 things before, that's that lack of education around tax. Now, where we do talk about it is at the other end, where people get pissed off at other people who aren't working because they've figured out, well, actually, if I work, then I'm going to get X amount after tax. But if I am on some form of benefit, then I will get X amount and I don't have to do the 40 hours of work or the 35. I'll also get this accommodation supplement, etc. And so humans will always game a system to the parameters in which they have to play the game. Now, if you talk about this stuff only, people are then like, you're bashing beneficiaries. That's what we call it in New Zealand, and people get really frustrated by that. But really, we should be to be unemotional and go, oh yeah, that doesn't really make sense that people are now disincentivized to work. It could be that somebody gets what we call working for families tax credits in New Zealand. They might even be working or want to do some extra work, but they realize, oh, if we do that, then we lose some of those working for families tax credits because our income's going above the threshold. We won't do the extra work because why? Well, we'd lose the credits, but then I've got to do even more work. So now I'm working more and not getting
that's right
as much. This doesn't. So we're lazy by design, right? So why would we, make it harder for ourselves? And that's, a tax system is designed to sort of push and pull behavior. And what I often or have observed after being in this industry for 20 years is that we're not doing enough to incentivize behavior that we really need. So New Zealand's the 3rd most obese country in the OECD. Now, people would say, well, we should then have a tax on sugar. Or no, we should take GST off food, good healthy foods. Because it's easy, because you don't have to do anything. I'm going, well, where's the tax incentive for those high performers and those people who do want to take it into their own control? They've started to realize, oh yeah, what if I am investing some money into my health, then why can't I get a tax deduction on that? So what that would look like is, let's say you're making $80,000 a year. So let's say $2,000 above 78 to 80,000 would be taxed at 33%, right? So if you were to spend $2,000, and let's say we change the rules and we say, okay, you can claim up to $5,000 per year on things that are going to improve obesity, they're going to improve education, and maybe financial literacy. People say, well, you're biased because you're in that space. But, some of these core problems that we have in New Zealand. So, okay, Luke goes along and he spends, $500 on counseling because I'm struggling mentally. So, well done, Luke. You're doing something about it, using your money to go and seek some support. And then, wow, okay, I didn't realize I was thinking like that. Okay, that's what's holding me back. That's why I'm drinking on the weekends. That's why I'm then unproductive on a Sunday and a Monday. I need to tidy that thing up, and then I won't rely on alcohol to cope. Wow, I'm more productive on a Monday now. Whoa, okay, I'm training on a Monday. I'm thinking clearer. I'm not fighting with my partner. Awesome. Okay, good outcome. Okay, now I'm exercising a bit as well, and that's costing me $2,000 for the year because I've now got a personal trainer, or I'm doing something where we can tick it off and make sure that it is, accredited or the right type of thing. So of course we'd have to set some boundaries. So then you end up over the course of the year, you spend $2,000, let's say, on these things that are going to improve yourself. You might even be self-education. I actually paid for this course, or I purchased these books. Yeah. Great. you've spent $2,000 on that. You don't have to pay the tax on that. So what it would mean is that you've paid tax on $80,000 worth of income, but really your total income was 78 because you reinvested $2,000 back into yourself. So I'm suggesting, well, we should then tax people on the $78,000. So on that $2,000 extra, you wouldn't pay $660 worth of tax because all that tax is doing is redistributing it to where the government thinks that they can get a better bang for buck. Well, why don't we incentivize the individual to then use their own money to invest into the things that they think will make a difference on their life, and then they don't have to pay tax on that because you're choosing where to do it. Now, all that's going to happen for that person is they're going to become healthier, better educated, less obese, think cleaner, and be a better parent, a more productive employee. What's all that going to lead to? Probably higher incomes and more tax.
Yeah.
That the government will end up getting back.
Yeah.
But what people will say is like, no, people will rot the system. And then I'm saying, well, aren't they already doing that? With these different ways that they, people find to avoid tax. So I think there should be some incentives that in the tax rules that allow people to better themselves in a modern economy and be rewarded for that. It's hard to understand, but I think hopefully that example makes sense.
No, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, going back to that, tax incentivizing behavior, all of this kind of stuff. You see it in a lot of countries, European countries, where they are giving grants for people to have kids, for example. So I would say in New Zealand, not really an incentive to have a family, really, like we were talking about before. When you and your wife are earning good money, you're traveling around the world and whatever. Now, wait, we want to have kids. What is that going to do to our finance? It's really something you do think about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And another countries are realizing the population problem, obviously, and they're now creating incentives for this type of stuff. So, yeah, I think the core thing that you mentioned there is about behavior and these things that drive behavior. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think that point that you make about investing in yourself was very, very good. And that's why I wanted to bring it up here. So there's a lot of good things in there. Things that we could potentially do. Now, the benefit is an interesting one. When I came here, I could not believe that this country operated like that. And I must say, though, I've always been a believer on trying to level the playing field a little bit, because not everybody has the same opportunities, right? So I do believe that there is a place for the benefit. There are people that sometimes go through hard patches of life, and that is there to support getting back on their feet. But like you said, it's just, when you're incentivized by that, it's when things like what happens in New Zealand, where even entire families just live off the benefit, right? Now, here's one thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I always thought about this is, well, if I go up to Kaitaia, mate, like there's absolutely nothing to do out there. I find New Zealand's economy so centralized that people really need to get out of their farm and their comfortable houses in order to actually go and chase opportunities. And I always thought, why doesn't New Zealand activate different parts of the country, incentivize companies to open factories there to? But always, every time I think about these things, I always come back down to, but why would they even work in that company? You know what I mean? And I talked to, actually, it was very funny because I talked to a rapper in one of my first episodes. He's from the Mount. And we're talking about people struggling and what it was like for him growing up with, gang affiliations and stand in a very small country to get out of that, all of that kind of stuff. And I said, bro, what do you think the government can do to help? And you know what he said, which was like, he said, well, first thing they would want to help the help. Like,
yes, the person needs to want the help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck, that's a very good point. Like, why, we can sit down here and think about ways to reactivate those regions, but at the core of everything is the fact that why would I even go and work when you know what I mean? So going back to change behavior, what do you think are those things that, like, you talk about investing for yourself, but have you thought about this, like reinvesting in different regions and activating, giving incentives to people to actually go and find these jobs? Many parts of New Zealand actually rely on foreigners, like even backpackers, to fill those gaps, because we don't have like enough people to. Well, we do have the people, but they're just not willing to do that work. What do you think are things that we could start doing to reactivate the economy in different places, and then ultimately, get these people working and get the country in a better economic position?
Geez, how long you got? Well, Yeah, so I think there's a few things in there, right? And one is people have to want to start with. And I've been creating content for so long now, right, that I get to see people's comments and then I see how many people like it to get a bit of a vibe for what it is that they're saying. So I get a bit of a unique look where I get to have my opinion or 2 cents, but then, okay, sometimes the community or the viewers will react differently to how I'll think, which is fine, and it'll get a lot of traction. So there's actually, I think, becoming a lot of frustration in New Zealand about people coming to New Zealand. Now, this gets like a really gnarly topic, right? Because it's sort of what we've relied on to keep the economy going, sort of like you say. But what Kiwi people, let's say, started saying to me is, well, New Zealand should be a cruisy place with work-life balance. And then immigrants are coming here going, whoa, look at all this opportunity.
So much to do here, yeah.
I'm not wasting this. And so then they're taking the opportunities, and now the Kiwis are saying, you took the opportunity from me. And now there's like a little bit of this rift coming, and I'm kind of watching it play out going, whoa, I didn't realize this was as scary as it is. And I think it might be a topic that we're going to have to talk more about, but it's very dangerous. You know, you get called a racist and a xenophobe and all these sorts of things. So everyone's scared to talk about it. But these people coming to New Zealand are seeing opportunity because their opportunity was to come here. And once they get here, they're like, yo, I'm not going back. I'm going to make the most of this. Whereas, and then they're willing to do the work and may want to do it for a lower income. And then people are like, well, then they just send it back home. This isn't good as well. So that, I think, is playing out, and maybe people are seeing that and going, that can't be the way that we grow the country. And we've really had the population slow down with people wanting to come to New Zealand, especially as the economy's slowed down itself too. And people then saying, well, don't come. But, you know, then the regions, I guess, are attracting these people because then New Zealanders are like, oh, I don't want to work for that amount of money. Because you got to remember, if someone's coming to New Zealand, if they're seeing $35 an hour, they're pricing it in, okay, what do I have after tax and what can I do with that? And then I'm comparing it to what I once was making, right? What a Kiwi person is doing, and what opportunity can that provide for me? What a Kiwi person is doing is going, I used to work for $28. I'm now working for $35. I don't feel like I've got as much to show for it. I'm now paying more tax in their head, they'll be thinking.
Yep.
And now after, you know, going to work for $35, I've got $22. Oh, I can't even buy a box of Heineken anymore. Should I do the extra hour of work? Whereas someone else is like, I've got a big goal. I've got to protect my family. I'll do the extra hour. Let's roll. And I was a little bit like that when I was coming out of university, where you would get offered overtime and it was at time and a half. I'm like, yo, how much of this can I do? I'm like, you're going to pay me 1.5x my hourly wage to just do the same shit because I've already done 8 hours of it. I'm like, I'll stay here until I fall over. And I did a 14-hour day one day in a factory, you know, like going for it all day. We're pumping like calories into ourselves to keep going, like packing these massive orders, 1,000 kilos at a time. And I'm like, man, this is epic, because my goals were, sheesh, I can stack this cash. I'm going to have more money at uni. I can clear down some of my student loans. So again, going back to the 5 things, like very clear on my goals. But somebody else would go, oh, yeah, they would say to us, you boys are idiots, you know, doing that overtime. They just get their pound of flesh out of you. I'm like, oh, I'll see you tomorrow, mate. I'm like, what the hell? What was all that about? I'm like, hey, why doesn't he want to stay? I'm like, this is epic. Yeah. We're getting fit. We're getting paid. And I think we're at this tipping point where wages haven't kept up with real inflation. So basically we have a nominal inflation rate. That's, you know, what the cost of things are going up. But then people have got to pay tax on their increase, right? Or their extra, put that aside to the government, give them that, and then go, okay, great, now you've got the 67% left over or the 70%. Okay, is it worth it to then, you know, have a kilo of mince, if that? And people are pricing things in, you know, what they need to buy. Now, another way to think about this is, you know, a real estate agent, for instance, if I'm going to like work with a real estate agent, not that I do much work with them, but if I say, oh, this is my service cost this, they're like, oh, yeah, that's just one commission. So they're pricing it in what they make. They make, yeah. And I think we all do this. And again, it's one of these things we don't talk about. So if now we're saying to people, oh, go and do this work, but you're only getting $22 after tax or $24, or like now you're working for families cut down, you're pricing it in, okay, what would I buy with that? Is it meaningful enough for me to buy, to swap my time to be able to then buy that thing? So I have to kind of set the scene with that, because what I think where it all went wrong as well is that we taught people to be factory-like. So like Luke, working in that factory, and then we'll give you money to do that, and we'll probably keep pace with inflation, and we'll give you some overtime. And that was where you made your cream and you really kind of crushed it. But the world changed, you know? On my first phone, I would ring up a number and I would record a voice note, and then I would pay 20 cents to send it. They would get a message to say there's a voice note from Luke. They would listen to it, and then they would swap one back. And it would be like, man, I've got $1 of credit. I can do 5 of them. I just walked in here. I was sending a bloody voice note, you know, over some internet. I don't even know how it works. On my $2,000 iPhone, you know. And we didn't teach Kiwi people, the whole world completely changed. So yeah, you should keep working for $1 per hour, $35 per hour or whatever it may be. That's around the median income in New Zealand. And you should just be happy with that. And then you got Barry, who's like, well, I'm sick of that. And then knocks on the door next door and says to Janice, like, hey, can I mow your lawns? It'll be $75. And she goes, yes, please. Well, now I don't like Barry. What do you get $75 for doing that? That's bullshit. And then this person is like, well, not everyone can do that. Well, yeah, not everyone can stay angry and stay in the job that they resent as well. Like, not everyone can be an employee. You know, not everyone can be on the benefit. But we've got to find our story that we keep repeating to ourselves to validate how we feel. But Barry's like, I'm sick of this, I got to change. And then we have to go on the journey of change. And then just like the story I told earlier, where then that person charges $200, $500, $1,000, bang, they're into a completely different world. So I think there hasn't been enough teaching in New Zealand of how much and how quickly the world was going to change. And we don't get paid for the hour that we do. We get paid for the value that we bring to the hour, is an old saying, right? So it's actually, how can I solve a problem in that hour? Now, when you have an aging demographic, what happens is the wealth accumulates with that aging demographic.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and this is what I always bang on about, right? Because this is where the opportunity is. And then they've got the money. Well, are they going to want you to do a couple of hours around the house for them? Yes, but what do we tell them? Okay, I'll solve your problems. And to solve your problems, here's what you're going to have to pay me. And now you're not earning by the hour, you're earning by the problem that you solve. And the bigger the problem you solve, the more you'll get paid. But because people don't learn this, then they get the job, and then they get, and they're resenting it. And now you get media article, I applied for 400 jobs, and I didn't even get an interview. It's like, no shit. The economy's stopped, unemployment's increased, all the money is with the older people. They're not going to employ you.
Yeah,
they're going to hire you to do tasks, to solve problems. And then I've got students, coming through the Keep the Change community, and they're like, yeah, bro, I've got 50 grand worth of work through to Christmas helping people fix their camper vans. Oh, okay. So again, like, they've understood the assignment, and this is just creating an even bigger divide between, again, the 5% of people that can see what's happening and acknowledging it and going, right, I'm going to have to make money a different way. So again, like, I don't think I've got the fix to just fix the economy, right? But I think that's a simple, practical solution that people could grab onto. But often when you grow up in a rural town or a small part of New Zealand, you just see the world the way that it is in that. And this is why, a lot of Kiwi people, when they go traveling overseas, if they're lucky enough to do that, then come back and they're always like, man, I look at the world completely differently. It's like, yeah, because you got out of your environment. So for all of us, I think we should be getting out of our environments and having a look at how people are doing things differently. And guess what? We can now do it on social media. We can now do it on YouTube, and we can see what other people are doing. And we don't look at it from a lens of, envy. We should be looking at a lens of curiosity. Why are they doing that? How are they doing that? How did they make sense of that? And this just, applies to all of us. But I think we've got this closed-minded, we just want New Zealand to be the way that it once was. And we want the world to be the way that it once was. But it's not.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Yeah, if you don't accept that, then your life is going to be hard. And again, you're going to fall into that patch of people that are going to be very envious of the people who figure it out and then set about taking action because their goals are big enough, and they change their belief system, and then they win a lot, and it'll frustrate people.
100%, dude. Not a lot to add there, apart from the fact that I think right now we're in a very pivotal moment in society and humanity as a whole, really, with the capacity for you to really create these solutions that you're talking about for these people, right? With AI, I don't know if you work with it a lot, but I do. I create products with it, and it's insane the speed at where you can move right now. And yeah, I mean, two things for me that are going to change everything if you really lock in, is education and the ability for you to deploy faster has never been easier in human history. So I think there's so much opportunity out there for people to simply get out of their shell, go out there, find the education that they need, which is available, right? Very easily. And AI is going to even revolutionize even further. And then start, like I learned how to make an entire agent, workflow that does a job that used to take me like 3 hours of the day, put the time up front, learn how to use it. Now that does it automatically for me. Liberates my time. I can use that for something else, of watching YouTube videos.
Yeah.
How to do it. That's it. So it's like there's these little things that you can do. Like I use that for this podcast. I use AI a lot to create footage, to create a bunch of different stuff, to even cut the podcast using an algorithm. Those algorithms are written by AI. Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so much more out there today to do, to apply all these things that you were talking about.
Yeah, I think the overarching thing is that we have to believe that there is opportunity to start with. So again, belief, but then opportunity comes from helping other people and solving their problems.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of Kiwi people are just focused on their own problems. But then they will say that rich people and successful people are selfish. Oh, you must be selfish to achieve that. You must have had to sacrifice shit. It's like you're sacrificing things by not chasing your potential.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you want to have an argument about it? Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Who knows? You're frustrated with your life. I'm not. So, hey, maybe you want to talk to the people who aren't angry and frustrated with their life. Look for solutions. But, if you're just solely focused on yourself, then all you're going to see is your own problems. You need to be like heads up looking at the world and going, okay, what problems do they have? And you've got to practice this. And it's, smiling at someone who looks angry might change their day.
Yeah.
The other day, I went down to get my dinner. There's an elderly lady standing on the side of the road. She's holding on to a post. Because I'm like hardwiring myself to look for ways to help, my brain is like, see if she needs help. So I'm like, are you okay? Like, are you trying to cross the road? And she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. I'm just waiting for something. Thank you so much. Thank you. She thanked me 3 times.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking. I'm not making any money. That's fine. It's not even. So you're teaching yourself to try and help other people. And your brain, looks for that. And that's how you start doing well, because you're not just focused on yourself anymore. But when you're trapped into survival mode, you are probably just focused on your own situations and your problems, because it's comfortable to stay there. And much like what you're saying before, you're like, okay, well, it's hard to then lose the weight and to go on that journey and realize that actually this internal belief that I've got is holding me back. So it is easier to be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of salt in these foods. Oh, there's a lot of sugars. Oh yeah, this is shit. It's the diet. Oh yeah, well, who can exercise in this day and age? It's winter. Oh, well, what the hell? I don't have the right shoes. Oh, well, and so then you find all these reasons, because all you're doing is trying to find, reasons that you can't do it. And really you're just focusing on yourself. And if you said, but if I come along and break and go, oh, okay, well, like, do you want to die, before you even have children? Well, what do you mean? So, well, the way you're going and the path that you're on, you're just thinking about yourself. Like, don't you want to think about helping your wife or your partner or, your baby or your sperm count? Wouldn't that be something to get you moving, But again, because people don't have these, ability to think about others, then it's like, oh, well, so then I become the bad guy, well, not everyone can do that, man. You're like, well,
bro, that's the staple right there. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Come on, mate.
Well, yeah. And like, sometimes I think it'd be kind of good if, social media costs to go on so that people,
100%.
Yeah. To like,
just like when Elon Musk charged for the verification, just like, you can only comment like 3 times a day or something like that.
The comments would be so much cleaner, because positive people don't comment, right? They're too busy doing their stuff. So then social media looks real negative. They consume
them, they move on with their lives. They're not busy.
Oh, wow, here's another opportunity for me to tell everyone about my problems. Bro, go and help someone else, man, and you'll fix your problems. But yeah, anyway, I can do an hour on that.
Anyways, bro, that's so good. There's so much I wanted to talk to you about. I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to do this. I do this exercise with especially with people like yourself. It's a section I call Stay or Straight. It's pretty straightforward. I'll present you with that dilemma. Obviously, this is hypothetical. Present you with a dilemma and 2 options, and you just let me know. Option 1 or option 2. You can elaborate as to why. This is just a fun way to dive into some thoughts. When investing for the first time, you should 1, play safe and invest in stable stocks, or 2, high risk, high reward, baby.
We know the right answer is the first one, right? But I think it is because most people are scaredless to lose some of their money because they think it's really hard to make money. So if you think it's hard to make money, you're going to be scared of letting it go.
Yeah.
And it looks really risky letting it go for something you're not getting something tangible back for. So to go further on your learning journey, I think you've got to start with the safe stuff to then learn more, to then figure out your risk tolerance and how far you're going to push it.
One thing though that I've realized with this, because I've tried to get like my mom and some of my parents to use these applications to easily invest. Like they don't really understand how that works. But one of the craziest things about investing that I found with them is that they want high reward immediately.
Yeah.
And when you tell them like, no, wait, like you just gotta put this money there. It takes time, but eventually it will grow. Like you will see it. And it's so hard for them. Like they want to, they hear about this crypto, right? And how that like goes like from one day to another. It's like, and then you have to explain to them the volatility of it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding about how to get started and how to see that. And then eventually you learn how to, what stocks you can actually put a lot more money on and be a little bit riskier, but get higher returns. But the first step, I think, is definitely better to play it safe.
Yeah.
At least that happened to me as well when I was getting started. All right, second one. Oh, this one is an interesting one, actually, because it's a topic I want to talk to you. So young Luke today in New Zealand would stay here and you can fill that up or bugger off somewhere with a higher pay and bigger opportunities.
Yeah. If I was young and do I know what I know now kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I stay here is because I can see the opportunity in front of me and I can then, there's no reason why I can't go global and do it from New Zealand.
Right.
The only person that will stop that is me. So why do I need to go to another country to do it, with what I am doing? And I love New Zealand and the life that I have, but I can see why a lot of people are going. And I think if I didn't know what I know now, then I probably would be drinking the Kool-Aid of, okay, maybe I would go and do this from somewhere else. Sometimes I think, okay, if I was to, just start again from tomorrow, I probably would go, but when I have my knowledge, I'd probably go to Bali or a country where it's cheap to live and be around successful entrepreneurial type people and then build out online globally, make the US dollar, make euro. So then I'm having to do less work for more money because it's then in their currency, solve their problems, and it's costing me bugger all. That will help me build up my capital faster, and then I can figure out what I want to do from there. So I can definitely see the appeal of getting out of New Zealand.
And that's a very interesting response, and I thought that you were going to say that. But there's one thing that key in terms of your own understanding of this is that you are actually also prioritizing your lifestyle in New Zealand, which is, for example, the reason also why I am here. Like I've thought about it ages ago. It's like, man, if I go to Australia, I get paid way more. Things are way cheaper there. I love music. I love sports. There's so much more events in there. But I did really like the people in New Zealand. I like the style. So because what you just said, people say, well, you can do the same thing from Bali, right?
Yeah. And
then solve some problems here and some problems over there, but then you're paying cheaper rent. There's great lifestyle over there, but you're really rooted on the fact that you love your life in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, and I kind of think, well, if I can't build a life that I love here, how do I know I can do it somewhere else? So why not just focus on doing it here?
Right.
So then it's my responsibility again. It's not, if I was in, Tokyo, my life would be way better. I'm like, I've got to figure it out here because I'm here at the moment. Yeah.
Cool. Last one, as someone who preaches abundance, when you own revenue dips, do you double down on abundance mindset, invest in growth, trust that it will work out, and you risk burning cash reserves, or you pull back, get conservative, protect what you've built?
No, I push harder.
Harder.
Yeah. Revenue for me now is like a lagging indicator of the actions that I've taken earlier. So I know that if I pull back on the inputs, my outputs will change. Outputs being revenue, profit. So I know it's not just like flicking a switch. It's actually, if I'm running a workshop that might make me some money, right? Well, then I've got to try and sell it. So then I've got to have inputs of, okay, have I emailed? Have I run ads? That's naturally going to tell people about it, tell people about me. It's forcing me to be directionally correct. I might not run the workshop for another 6 weeks. And then, but then off the back of that workshop, 2 months later, someone comes to the workshop and then they go, that was epic. Now I'm going to do some one-on-one coaching with you. Really, that revenue started back here at the decision to run the workshop and to be bold enough to do it and to spend the marketing money to get people to come to the workshop, and then they became the client 3 months later. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So, I always think these things lag more than what we think they do, because we do live in a world of we go online, see someone doing e-commerce and they just flick a magic Facebook ad and sell 1,000 hats or something and make some money. You think, oh, wow, okay, they've had to spend money on marketing to do it. But often, in my world, these things take longer. So, kind of a better way to explain it at the moment is that I'm spending more money in having a videographer come with me when I do presentations and speeches and stuff. And so that's eating into any fee that I can charge. But I know that something good will come of it, that the next keynote will, that I've then got content that I can post about. So if I was a true accountant, I'd be like, well, what is my ROI on having the videographer and doing the editing,
Yeah.
Be like, can we justify that? I'm like, I'll trust that it'll work, and I might go, okay, if I spend $5,000 on editing, well, then I need to get one more keynote at some stage and I can make that money back. Sounds like a good investment to me. And that's something that I've practiced like a lot and kind of gone deeper with.
Yeah.
But then, sometimes I'm like, do I need to do all of this stuff? Like maybe I've got the audiences, I don't need to be doing it. So you're kind of always like testing your thinking. But yeah, I think if you know what you're doing has margin in it and does well, then most people in New Zealand have an attention problem. They don't have enough people that know that they exist. And there's a reason that Briscoes are one of the biggest companies in New Zealand, because they make sure everybody knows who they are. And there's enough margin in the stuff that they sell that they can wrap the Herald, they can sponsor that lady, they can have the TV ads, they can run radio ads, and all of that shit costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And Rod Duke, he's on the rich list, and it ain't from playing small. It's from constantly reinforcing to Kiwis that if you need the stuff, you got to come to Briscoes.
Yeah. The Kemeys warehouse is doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Like they going crazy. Like they put so many pharmacies out of business. Actually, they going nuts.
Let me teach you something about that I learned and I was blown away. So the average spend at a pharmacy is $30. The average spend at a chemist warehouse, $150.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet, bro. I'm a big customer. And it's because nowadays I find that I go there for things that I usually buy in the supermarket, but it's because it's there.
Yes. And so what they do is, okay, it's like, it looks like it's cheaper, it's $1 off, but then you end up buying 5 times the amount of stuff that you would typically buy. So these other pharmacies are having to learn how to sell and how to compete with them because they are just swamping everyone. But you go into them and you're in this dopamine center of like, whoa, shit, look at all these products I didn't even know exist. I need some flavored creatine. I need this protein. Oh, I need this low carb, this. I'll get a multivitamin. Next thing you're like,
oh shit, yeah, $200 in there. Yeah.
And then they're like, don't worry, you can finance it and pay it off over 6 installments. And so you're like, oh, okay,
bro,
I can.
And have you noticed something? This is very subtle, but it's very clever. When you see a receipt from the Kemeys warehouse, I don't know if you noticed this, but usually when you get a receipt, you get, your subtotal, your GST, and then you get your total at the bottom. They don't do it like that. Your total is at the top, and then at the end you get your savings, and it highlights it.
Oh yeah, nice.
So they because that's what they want to focus on. Like they want you to focus your attention on the savings that you've done. So they've designed. This is one of those things that, again, I'm a designer. I usually talk about design here, but it's so clever to try to highlight the message and the positioning of your business in such subtle ways. When you look at the other day, I had the receipt. I was like, how much did I spend? And I'm looking at $54. I was like, what? Then I had to relook at it, and oh no, actually this is the total. And I was like, genius.
Yeah.
Genius. So there's all these little things that these businesses do in order to scale at that level. A couple more things. I'm gonna do so much I wanted to talk to you about.
I got heaps of time, bro, if you do.
So really?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. You talked about the psychology of abundance versus the scarcity mindset. This one is an interesting one. Why? Because I work a lot with startups, right? Technology. And in that space, your business could, what you mentioned just before, sometimes a business could disappear in a change of a policy, in the change of a particular data. For example, if you work with data, right? I remember there were so many social listening platforms at one point. Cambridge Analytica happened. Hundreds of businesses just died because Facebook had to close the gates, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of uncertainty in many industries in the startup world, especially if you're working with technology. The other day, right, Google released anti-gravity or whatever. These things really do impact the work that you make. Now, my approach to this is gotta go out there and find how these tools can help you then reshape your services. But when you talk about reinvesting money, right, and keeping the scarcity mindset, one thing that I've learned as well from entrepreneurs that I've talked to, and I really hang on to this thing, is that sometimes when you deprive yourself of money and try to keep yourself as, not spend too much, what it does is that allows you to get creative too.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to talk a little bit about this, because these are things that are sort of conflicting, but I totally get your point when you talk about doubling down, right? And some of these companies that you see nowadays are the biggest companies in the world. They got to that stage because they did double down.
Yeah.
Right. But oftentimes I've seen it many times with and even our own business, when you start getting a lot of money, business is great, blah, blah, blah. You double down, you double your team because you're now going to make twice as many products or whatever. And then suddenly something happens and go, oh, shit. And now we are no ARR anymore. And it could potentially just finish your business. So it's kind of an interesting thing of trying to do more with less, to get creative about how can I do this thing, which is my goal, but not necessarily go hard on spending money, but how can I do it with the least amount of money possible? You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And I think of my upbringing, and I think that this would be a lot similar for a lot of Kiwi people, you would always have spare petrol in the car. And I think that taught us that, okay, there's always a bit of a backup. And I think money is the same, that if we don't have that backup, we know deep down that it feels uncomfortable. And you even now have to just look at the same behavior of people who drive a Tesla. Now, they talk about there's a new form of anxiety when your battery is getting really low. And the fact that that's even real, or there's a term for it, sort of shows us what's happening, right? And we are scared that we're going to run out of the resource, whether it's the fuel, the battery, or the money. So I think there is something really healthy in having liquid cash that you can access, whether it's individually. Okay, my dog got run over, great. I've got $5,000 set aside in an emergency fund. The vet says, look, we can save your dog, but it's going to cost you $3,000.
Oh, yeah, that also happens.
Yeah, you're going to pull the trigger, right? On the three. Yeah, sweet. If you don't have, you're going to be like, do you guys have any sort of finance options? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do actually do. You'll need to fill this form out, and yeah, we can do it. Oh, okay. Save my dog. But like, even I thinking about this, I'm like, that feeling is worse than having the $3,000. Like, I'll pay for it right now. Let's go. You're rolling from this level of confidence. And maybe that's what I've learned about my journey. And every time I get back to having no disposable cash, I'm like, I don't like that feeling. I want to stack it back up. But I trust myself to be able to roll it back in and then get it back. But every time it goes back to zero or there's not much there, I'm like, what if something happens tomorrow? And I think the brain is always doing that for us. So a good example and this is where it can become dangerous, is that I work with business owners, right? And they will stack some cash. And I had one, and they had $100,000, and that was their figure. Well, why is it $100,000? Why is it not 98? Okay, round number, sounds like a lot of money. So we create these things in our head, right? Gets to 100, and then within about a space of 4 months, like a few staff members left, revenue slowed down, and they had to pay out all the annual leave. They had to hire someone. There was then a lag of getting them up to speed. Now their ceiling is I need $100,000 in that bank account to feel safe. And because it was sitting at 40, 50, it's like, I'm failing. This is frustrating. It needs to be 100. I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure. I liked it. So we can reset these ceilings, and then they can feel great, but then they can also kind of be a little bit scary.
That's true.
Yeah. So I do think that I'll tell you, like, a better way for me to explain it would be, the most confident I feel is normally when I know that if everything's stopped, like, I've got some resource that I can lean on, and I'm like, okay, great. Like, here's what I can do. And I'm not having to go, oh shit, it stopped. I need to, figure this out. Not everyone can do that. And when the back's against the wall, go out there and just solve it and get money coming in. Some people can, and that's great. But again, it's a skill set that you have. So it's almost like having the canister of petrol in the back of the car. I know I've got some resource, but I also know what I could do as well. Maybe you know how to siphon fuel out of someone else's vehicle. So given that you've got that skill, you've also got that in your toolkit. Well, if you didn't, then you can't rely on that. You can only rely on the spare resource. So for a lot of people, they don't know how to make extra money. So therefore, they should have a buffer of cash and can't really have the confidence that they'll solve it. What does society do to us? Well, it knows that we don't know how to make money, and that we believe that we aren't powerful, and that there's not abundance, and we don't know how to do it. So then we do go to the vet. Oh, great, I'll use your credit. And then you say to yourself, I can afford it. No, you couldn't afford it. Someone lent you the money to afford it.
That's true.
But we normalize it like, no, I can afford these $300 sneakers, for instance, but I've got to pay them off over 6 installments.
Bro, it's a topic on his own, eh? Like that one.
Yeah. And so that's society, knows, like they know they're all minted. They're all the biggest, growing companies selling us our ability to keep spending money we don't have. And then we think we're winning. Like, oh no, I'm just doing what everyone else does. Oh, I could afford it. And yeah, if you can get out of that world and you can stack some cash and have some resource, it's a very powerful feeling that not many people can relate to, because it's so hard to do now because you're just getting bombarded all the time. Like Dave recording this, it's Black Friday, right? So people are getting bombarded to buy stuff. And then they'll go and do it, and then they'll get remarketed too later on too. They've been captured in a Facebook pixel, captured in an email funnel. There's probably some follow-up. Oh, right, your protein runs out in 30 days that you purchased on your Black Friday where you thought it was a one-off sale. Day 28, day 25, there's an email saying, hey, did you enjoy the protein? You might have to reorder because you might be running out. Oh, that's so thoughtful of them. Yeah, it's an automated email to get you spending again. Hey, here's a discount for you, 15. So people can't see these traps that they get themselves into.
Yeah.
And then again, the guy comes along like me and is like, hey, stack an emergency fund. Oh, easy for you to say, mate. Like, yeah, I'm trying to teach you why you can't see that it could be easy as well.
Yeah, 100%. That is one of those things that people don't really understand. I didn't at some point. I was talking to you just before. It got to a point where I basically went from like saving every penny, not spend any money on like fancy clothes or cool stuff, to having a life-changing moment where I'm, man, I can buy myself some cool stuff. But then I fall into the trap of like, even though if I had the money, I'm like, nah, but I can pay it in like, 3 installments is easier. So I have more stuff. And you start falling into these traps. And once you realize, you're like, oh my goodness, like, why am I spending this money like that? And I'm paying, fees for credit cards and stuff. And then you start to understand and unpack that. And I went to this journey of discovering, all these different tricks that they do to get you to pay more and get in debt. Because my sister was the one that told me, it's like, man, you can actually make money with these credit cards if you're really, really, really good. Went down this rabbit hole where now I have this system where I only have one credit card. I have only like $1,000 on it, which is what I use when I travel. And then I just use that all the time unless I'm paying an extra fee. And then I get the rewards at the end of it. You pay like a $60 fee. But then at the end of the year, you get like $1,000 cash back. And suddenly you're like, oh shit, wait a minute. And then you start to realize, okay, well, for example, for me, if I want to buy a car, I start to save money before that. It's like, okay, if I want to upgrade my car, I need to do this. I need to save this much money. So I don't have to go into these traps of putting it over the loan or whatever. So these things are very interesting. Talk a little bit about this sort of traps that we fall into, because you probably looked at a lot of these cases, eh?
Oh, I've been and done half the stuff myself, So, credit cards, 0% interest finance, overdrafts, car loans, you name it. And I guess we have to realize that these businesses, they wouldn't do it if it wasn't profitable. And we like to believe that we are winning, So with the credit card example, for instance, but typically, because we're not spending our money, it incentivizes us to buy things that we wouldn't necessarily have brought.
That's right, yeah.
All the data suggests, whether it's buy now, pay later, credit card, etc., that the average transaction or average order value increases because you're not physically paying with your money that you've earned. You're telling your future self to repay your decisions. And that's what I often try and teach people is you're not paying for it. You're contracting your future self to do it. Now, where it becomes really dangerous, I think, is that people trap themselves and then they blame the way that it works. So, 8 out of 10 people don't really like the work that they're doing. Okay, so then wouldn't the solution be to find work that we like doing? Oh, that's too hard. Easy for you to say, same old shit, right? But what happens too is, well, I can't because of my finances, because I've got to pay my loans. Well, maybe that's why they wanted you to have all of that debt, so that you have to just stay, doing that and servicing them. So, okay, we can stretch out all these finance terms. What it means is it could be 3 years before you can actually leave that job or change your life because you're committed to paying those things back. So it's another hindrance to you changing your career, changing jobs, taking a break, having a child, or whatever it may be. Because then we've got to factor in the fact that we've still got to repay that. How am I going to pay my car loan? How am I going to pay my finance on my, the furniture? How am I going to pay the buy now, pay later? So you're riddled with debt, but you think, oh, like I'm winning. I'm using other people's money to buy these things.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's the bit that I think we don't have enough tough conversations with ourselves to be like, you know what? Like it's not really that's not really working. So what we just talked about, right, was emergency funds, having some of that aside, having some cash aside. People, I don't need to do that. I've got credit. I can just access credit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. A lot of people do that when they travel as well. Like they go out there and because they have this money available, then they book fancy hotels and they come back from that trip and they are like deep into debt. They, like this type of stuff.
The thing I remind people is that, okay, let's say you've got 10 grand worth of credit that you've racked up by going overseas and having an amazing holiday, but YOLO, and my mate was going and they had this life event, so I wanted to go with them. You don't need to pay back 10 grand. You need to earn 15 grand. Give the IRD 5 for tax. Now you've got 10 grand left. So same thing. Oh, I got a 2 grand credit card. No, you don't. You need to make 3 grand to clear the 2K.
That's right.
So even if you get a 3K bonus, well, you can now only just clear your credit card. Or even if you get a 3K pay rise over the next 12 months, well, you're just going to then give a grand to the IRD and then have 2 grand left to clear the credit card. So you've actually already spent your 3 grand pay rise by using 2 grand of credit.
That's right.
And people don't think about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to teach people, you don't need a 2 grand credit card. Why don't you just go out there and make 2 grand? Because then we're flipping into that, okay, now I'm in control, abundance, what else? How could I do this? But it's a choice and it's a journey. But, I'm realistic. I'm one dude with a tiny podcast, tiny budget, tiny social following compared to $8 billion worth of Black Friday marketing, 942,000 buy now, pay later users, 2 million personal credit cards out there, the banks, $1 billion businesses with $1 billion profits. And I'm like, hey, you guys should be careful with that. I ain't going to win this game. But I'm trying to be here to plant some seeds for the people who do want to go, oh, yeah, okay, maybe I could have a season of that. So I'll say to people, why don't you do a year without the credit card or without the consumer debt? Just so you've got 2 reference points.
Yeah.
Did you like it? Did you not like it? But most people, we've got to defend the decisions that we make. Oh, I use my buy now, pay later, but I always pay it back on time. Yeah, but your average order transaction will be higher. You will be spending more money. You're committing your future self. What happens if you lost your job? Like everything's always rosy when it comes to money until shit hits the fan. And that's what we're going to see in New Zealand when we get to 65. People are going to get to 65 and realize, oh, the pension isn't going to provide the life that they thought that it would. No one's coming to save them. They shat on KiwiSaver or saving for their retirement or believed that it wasn't possible to make extra money to then put some aside. And they're going to go, how did this happen? This is so unfair. The government should be doing more for me. Other people should pay more tax to help pay mine. I can't believe it. And then all these systems and support were there to start with to try and help them get to the finish line and be in a better position. But again, like the marketing to spend the money will be so much stronger that they'll do that and then they'll regret the situation that they've got themselves into, but that's when they'll get the lesson. And it's the same with the debt. You get into the debt and then your life changes. So it might be income, might be, okay, got pregnant. So therefore we don't have the same dual income coming in. Whoa, how are we going to service these debts? Okay, you're forced to figure it out. And that's, I guess, the problem. The finance company doesn't ask you, oh, so over this next 4 years, are you planning on like having a baby? Are you planning on losing your job? Hey, are you like kind of sick?
Bro, they trying to remove as much friction as possible. Like it's crazy how easy it is to now get one of those loans.
There's just debt everywhere that I think we need to educate Kiwi people to, just be careful with it. Hey, we all use it. It's part of life. You kind of got to do it to a degree, but you just need to be careful.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're here to do, mate.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks so much for taking the time. There was so much I wanted to talk to you about. We're not going to have the time to get into those topics because they are pretty deep. But, we can always do another episode, part 2. Before we finish, though, I do always do these things with my guests, which is a fun sort of exercise. What you got here in front of you is a bunch of buttons. With emojis, you can tap one and then there's a question behind it. Some of them are funny, some of them are like about personality, some of them, it's just
epic.
Whatever you feel, tap one.
Okay. All right, let's go to this recurring one here.
What's one belief you had 10 years ago that you no longer hold true today?
My brain, I often say this now because, I get asked so many questions and you want everyone to have just these epic answers. And now I say to people like, my brain gave me this answer. So my brain gave me the answer that it was hard to make money and it was hard to sell things. So I used to believe that because I just didn't have the education how to do it. And I think that's the same for a lot of Kiwi people is that they believe it's hard to make money. They will believe a lot of the things that I've said today, don't really make that much sense. Easier for other people to say those sorts of things. But again, it does start with that belief. And I used to think, it's hard to sell things. And now, years ago, I was like, if I keep believing that, what do you think is going to happen? It's probably going to be hard to sell things, right? So I'm like, how do other people do it. I'm like, oh, mate, they must learn how to do it. So then I had to get comfortable with, okay, maybe I'm not very good at it, and it'll become better if I learn how to do it.
Perfect. All right, let's tap another one.
Let's go to this meditation one because I don't do much of that.
What's a small thing you do every day that makes life better?
Gratitude is something that I think is...
Bro, this has come up 3 times in the podcast with that question.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think people understand it now. I flipped over... or do you mean this podcast or just everybody?
In this podcast, that question has come up 3 times. And it was for Melo Downs, the rapper, and Seymour. And both of them said gratitude. And I was quite blown away because the first time Seymour said it, something that but until you hear over and over, you're like, man, that is true. And then we start digging deeper. And, with Melo Downs, we talk about, you don't even realize how much of a clean air we breathe every day in this side of the world.
Yeah. And all it takes is for us to get sick or something. And, I had a bit of a health issue over last weekend, and it was just getting in the way of doing things. I wasn't able to go to the sauna. I wasn't able to gym. And you can make as much money as you want, and you can know all this shit about not touching debt. But man, when you're sitting there on the couch being like, I can't do anything.
Exactly.
You're like, man, the health is wealth, right?
Exactly.
But, I flipped over my calendar today. So I have I think this is a good practice as well. So my mum or my sister normally get me something every year that's a calendar, and it's got an inspirational quote or it's got something. And so I flip it over every day. And again,
that's cool.
It's a good habit to put into your life. It's gonna plant a positive seed every day. Because as soon as you go online, as soon as you get out there, it's we're at war kind of, with all the negativity and shit. And this morning's one is I can't remember the exact thing, but it's basically gratitude leads to wealth, complaining leads to poverty.
Ooh,
so
that's a powerful one there.
And you look at a lot of Kiwi people. Well, we got exasperated or extended poverty because most people are complaining. And if you tell someone, oh man, you should practice gratitude, you're a fucking idiot, mate. That's not going to fix my situation. Well, that's why you talk like that and why you're angry and why you're complaining all the time, because you can't even see the good things that are happening in front of you.
Yeah.
So what I started doing years ago, so over a decade ago, and I drilled this into myself to learn the habit. Every day, alarm would go off, 9 p.m., you got to write down 3 things you're grateful for. I had this list, bro, on my phone's note, and it just goes and goes over 1,000. Then I started doing it individually, writing it down. And I'd write my goals down every day, full psycho mode.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I'm like, I think I've embedded the habit. I think I've learnt the principle. I think I can chill a little bit. Next one?
Last one, yeah.
Okay. Let's hit the sad face because I reckon we can turn it into positive.
If you could relive one moment in your life exactly as it happened, which moment would it be?
Wow. I don't know what the answer to that is. Yeah.
A lot of people say, for example, their wedding.
Yeah. I haven't got to that yet.
Yeah. But moments where perhaps, I think one thing as well with business people is that happens oftentimes is that when you're moving so fast, you don't have time to appreciate the wins.
Yes.
For example. So
100%. Yeah. Actually, what my answer would be, and you have to be careful, right? Because then people are going to feel left out. And I love my partner, but she'll get this. I'm so close with my 2 best mates.
Yeah.
And when you are growing up at uni and hanging out together and having beers and doing things, and you get access to each other, you're just like, this is going to last forever. And then you go off.
Oh, bro, that's a great one.
Yeah, you live in different cities, and then man, you get back together, once every 12 months or 18 months. I got goosebumps thinking about it.
Bro, I got goosebumps. You're thinking about that because I left my friends when I was 16 years old in the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And you're in that moment, you're not thinking that you're going to cherish this thing, this conversation for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And so me and my 2 mates, we've been saving for years to go to the Kentucky Derby, this horse race in America.
Okay.
And, one of my mates lives in Sydney. One is a rural farmer. And then I'm in Auckland and we link up at the airport. We go, we finally do it. And we go and we're on the other side of America, the world in America, just having such a good time. And you're present and you're enjoying it, but then that it's going to end and you did all this build up to finally do it. And then I get home to my partner and, she's equally as amazing. And I just start crying. And I'm like, man, I'm like a grown man crying about how I've left my mates. And I'm like, I just need to go to the sauna, and I was like, I'm sleep deprived and stuff, and I'm just reflecting on, man, A, I got to do that. B, how good is it spending time with the boys? C, it's over now, that trip. Yeah. But now we're like, okay, let's make sure that we do things together because we love it. And I've just spent some money to go to the South Africa versus All Blacks tour next year.
Oh, nice.
With one of those mates because he really wants to do it for his 40th. So again, it's kind of like, oh, I'd rather invest that money into the stock market, but I know how valuable it actually is to
For your
spend that
life.
money and have
Yes,
that.
yes,
And
yes.
so I'm getting better at, okay, instead of buying the S&P 500 or, doing the boring thing, I'm like, oh, maybe that's a better use of the cash. But then I'm paying for the flights. I'm like, holy shit, this is expensive and it's going to take me 15 hours to fly over there.
Yeah.
But
Time commitment, all of that.
yeah, but it's I think time with your mates is just beautiful, and I think we forget that sometimes it's not as frequent as it used to be. So yeah, prioritize that.
100%, bro. Let's finish with that because that was beautiful. I actually do practice a lot of that with myself in terms of, like, for example, I enjoy music a lot. And there are many moments where like a concert would happen and I would be like, I want to save that money. And then one day Mac Miller fucking drops dead and I'm like, I didn't see him live because I wanted to save $70.
Yeah.
And nowadays I'm the type of person that always have money aside for experiences, for things like this. Like we went with our mates to the Gold Coast recently, and it's like, man, it's just those things that are. It's one of those things that we mentioned about, like, no matter how much money you have, how much beautiful things you own, being with those people is something that's intangible. Like just one of the most fulfilling things you can ever experience. So.
Yeah, 100%. And the cool thing is you've got to do things and spend money to figure out what those things are, right?
Yes, that's true.
Whether it's things, items, family, paying for someone's lunch, donating money, experiences, you can't really do that if you're just riddled with debt all the time and staying there and repaying the debt people. So you've got to give yourself the ability to get away from that so you can find out what do you actually enjoy spending your money on.
Hey, Luke, thank you very much for taking the time, man. I think we opened up for another episode, actually, because there was like a roll of stuff here that I wanted to cover with you. So we'll probably see each other again.
Let's do it.
If you're keen. Anything you want to talk about? We talked about Keep the Change Unplugged. Anything else coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, Keep the Change Unplugged next week. So I don't know if it'll go out before then.
Yeah, probably not.
But it's an in-person event. But yeah, check out some of the content. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm pretty in your face and like, let's sort your shit out sort of a dude. So if people don't like that, they're not going to like the pods. But, my goal was to help 100,000 people improve their financial literacy and their money. And I think I've done that, So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what I get up to next. I'm kind of warming up in terms of my journey. I'm heading towards 40. Plan on living a decent long life of helping people and things like that. So there'll be more stuff to come as well.
Awesome, and all the best with nextAdvisory as well. So if you need, there's a bunch of, if you put your name in there, there's just a bunch of like it's like an octopus of links that come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go and check it out. I have recommended your podcast in this podcast many times. I checked myself the videos because I find it very interesting. I always want to improve my financial literacy. And if you're an artist, a musician and an athlete which watches this podcast, is something so important to get your hands on, to be able to, bro, you know how many athletes I've met that get a lot of money out of the sudden. They don't even know what to do with that. And athletes is one of those jobs where it has an end. Like your body, I talk to football players and they know that by 40 they already they done, at least as a footballer, they can do more things, but investing in football, that happens a lot. Like investing in the right things is super important, and loaning your money is super important.
Maybe we should do that as a part two, because I guess we didn't even really talk about it. But you're right. Creative people I work with a lot, those high performers. But when you've got a short span of that, creators often don't know the financial side, the number
100,
side.
bro. That's what I'm saying. You like when I was talking to Mellow Downs. You know who Mellow Downs is, right? Mellow Downs was like, I asked him a question. Oh, a question in the soundboard came up, and the question was, what would be something that you want to learn instantly? So if you could flick a switch and you know this, what would it be? And he said financial literacy.
Yeah. We know it's so important, right? And
because it's so core to our lives, right?
Yes.
Like it's just
money doesn't miss any of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these creative people like him goes from kid in Avondale who just loves to rap, suddenly, getting all this attention, money, deals. How do I do this? How do I do that? Am I signing the right contract, for example, for a music deal? What does that mean for my equity? You know what I'm saying? Like creative people, artists, athletes, there's so much that can change really quickly, and understanding relationship with money, I think, is important. Just like I mentioned here many times, understanding relationship with marketing and brand. So next episode, eh?
Bring it on.
All right. Thank you very much for all of you who listen to this. Remember to drink water, exercise, go out there to the park. Don't make excuses, and ciao, ciao.
welcome to the next level.
If this content speaks to you, subscribing to the channel is one of the most powerful ways you can support what we're building here. That one small action can help us grow and continue to build this to more than just a podcast, but a community and a movement. Aloha nui, muchas gracias, ciao ciao.
Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I'll leave you another episode here. And if you'd like to support us, visit themeldedmuse.com. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.